Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another PS4 and PS5 Jailbreak news update. So we do have a number of updates for the new kernel exploit for the PS4 and PS5, the Lapse kernel exploit by ABC. So first of all, the most recent update is a new repo posted here by Al-Azif called PS3-Lapse. So Al-Azif has posted about it here, saying that 99% is ported to 8.00 to 9.60, missing the JOP chains because I jumbled them up a little bit, doing multiple firmwares at once. Can probably just use the ones from other implementations directly. Also, I won't be able to finish it until next weekend, as I have stuff to get done this week, so I'm publishing what I have. I'll take PRs if someone submits them, so pull requests, all set up for easy multi-console/firmware, just add the payload loader. So if we actually take a look at the repo itself, you can see it right here. So it's PS3 version 1.5.1. It's got a number of different features included. Auto detection, so it'll automatically detect the console type and firmware version in the config.mgs file. Also, the WebKit exploit is being used as the entry point to trigger the Lapse kernel exploit to then escalate privileges to kernel level. So the only thing that's really missing is the payload loader itself, which is work in progress, which is the last thing that's needed to actually turn this into a usable exploit, where we can then run payloads from it, like things like Gold Hen or Hen VTX. Will be able to run once, of course, this becomes available. So obviously there are still some other things on the to-do list. So the payload loader needs to be integrated and tested on 8.00 to 8.03 first. And that is simply because those are the firmwares that are currently supported, 8.00 to 8.03. So it needs to get ported up to the other firmwares, 9.00 all the way up to 9.60, which is the highest firmware, of course, that you can currently run this exploit from, using the PS3 WebKit exploit. Otherwise, to get up to 12.02, we'll be using a different project which will load it from the Lua exploit instead. So as you can see here from the to-do list, it's got to add the payload loader and then rewrite the JOP chains to support up to 9.60. And then, of course, we also have things like porting it eventually to PS5 once PS4 has been fully implemented. So that is what is being worked on there by Al-Azif. So this project is looking very, very close to actually being turned into a working exploit. It's already essentially working. It just needs the payload loader, at least on 8.00 to 8.03. And then obviously it needs to be ported to the higher firmwares up to 9.60 as well. And then it should be all good to go. So getting very, very close here. Also, we do have another repo that was posted a few days ago by Chameleon. And this, as you can see, says it's a PS3 WebKit exploit and Lapse kernel exploit for PS4 9.00, work in progress by ABC. So this basically aims to remove the need to use a USB drive for the 9.00 firmware. So of course there's two exploits on 9.00 so far, which requires a USB device of some kind, where essentially it runs through the web browser using the PS3 WebKit exploit. And then, of course, it will ask you to insert the USB drive. You insert the USB that has the exFAT hack image on it. And then after a few seconds, you can click OK. That will run the kernel exploit. It will then tell you to unplug the USB. And you then have the console jailbroken. So that is the kind of old 9.00 exploit that a lot of people are still using. There's also, of course, the ppPwn exploit from the Flow that came out last year that also works on 9.00 and up to 11.0 as well, which of course uses another device like a computer, Raspberry Pi or Luckfox Pico, or some device that can essentially run the exploit and send the required network data to the console. But both of those kernel exploits require external devices, either a USB or a computer or other device to run the exploit. But with the new Lapse exploit, it should be able to be triggered entirely from the web browser itself. So with the PS3 WebKit exploit and the Lapse kernel exploit, you'll be able to run it without needing a USB drive or without needing an external device of any kind. It can all just be done from the web browser, and this will eventually be ported all the way up to firmware 9.60. This has only just been posted a couple of days ago. It's not fully working yet. As you can see here, it says it's still missing some 9.00 kernel patches, so it's not complete yet at the time of recording this. But once this becomes fully available, you'll then be able to run a third kernel exploit on 9.00 firmwares that can be done entirely from the web browser. So that is one thing we've got. Another thing we also got is the release of PS4 Hen VTX for support for Hen building on 12.0 and 12.02 from EchoStretch. So this has now been posted. So this is again getting the homebrew enabler ready for these higher firmwares once this kernel exploit becomes available, and we have a full chain exploit that we can use to actually load payloads on the PS4 up to these firmwares. This is getting the homebrew enabler ready. So this is essentially EchoStretch's port of the original version of Hen, which I believe was from X-Vortex, which has then been, kind of shelved for a long time because we've all been using Gold Hen, which has all of these additional features added to it. But it takes Sistro a while to update Gold Hen to support all of the new firmware versions that become jailbreakable. So in the meantime, you can run Hen VTX, which is this more simplified version of Hen, which will give you the basic functionality of being able to do things like install your fake packages and run fake packages on the PS4. But it doesn't have a lot of the extra features that you get with Gold Hen, but it can get you up and running in the meantime. And it can be ported quite quickly to these higher firmwares, which is what's happening here. It's getting ported now for 12.0 and 12.02. And again, we'll only be able to use the web browser to trigger the jailbreak up to firmware 9.60. So for any higher firmware than 9.60, we'll need to use the Lua exploit. Now, the Lua exploit itself requires a bunch of different games that trigger the Lua exploit through the save file for the game. So you've got a bunch of games here that are currently supported. And unfortunately, the only games that are really available right now are these kind of Japanese, obscure, sort of Japanese weeb games, essentially, that are normally only sold in the Japanese market. So it can be quite difficult to get these. There are some places that you can get them where they're shipped internationally. And you should also, of course, check eBay, because sometimes there are, sellers on eBay who will ship internationally from Japan. And you might be able to find some that are selling the games locally as well. So definitely worth a try there. The other common place, of course, are sites like PlayAsia or CD Japan, which will sell them from Japan and send them internationally. So obviously you have to account for shipping costs, which can be quite expensive here, but this is another option if you can't find it anywhere else. The games that are typically available are the last ones that were recently added, which is this one here, Nora Princess and Stray Cat HD version, which is still available in some places, as well as this one. IX She Tell is another one that was recently added, so there's probably more availability of those compared to the original games that were first added, which are mostly sold out. So games like Hamadashi Creative, and then Raspberry Cube, and then there's also this game here as well, along with this one, and then also this one here as well. So those are all of the games that are currently compatible with the exploit, but more games will eventually be added to the list. So you could also just wait for a new game to get added and then try and buy it immediately as soon as it's available. Just keep checking the GitHub for any updates, and whenever a new game gets added, you'll be able to go out and buy one of those games at hopefully a more reasonable price. And there is also work ongoing to try and find a suitable game that will work with the exploit that is also available in most markets rather than only the Japanese market. So it will be much easier to try and get a hold of one of those games. So you could wait for one of those games to be supported with the exploit. But until then, if you want to get one now ready for when the PS4 and PS5 exploit is available, then you should definitely consider trying to get your hands on one of those titles as soon as possible. So anyway, moving on to another quick topic here. We can see from Zeko, he says that Flats seems to be doing a Hen V2 for PS5 and PS4 fake packages. Stay tuned. We get some more information here from EchoStretch showing a screenshot from the R&D Discord where Flats says it's just theoretical at the moment. I have reversed a lot of code at the weekend. Now need to try and find some spare time to implement this. Hope it will work on any firmware, which is pretty interesting. He also says should also speed up PS4 fake packages to their native performance, I believe. So this would be hugely significant. Obviously faster PS4 fake packages is nice to have them run at their native performance, but PS5 fake packages is what everybody is waiting for, because a lot of PS5 games that we can run in the current method by just having the dumped game files in a folder and running them that way through items flow, a lot of games just do not run with that particular method. A lot of them just have a black screen or they error when you try and launch them. Even when you're running from like external storage, a lot of games just do not work. So if we had a fake package implementation, it should theoretically fix all of those games that are not working. All the games and apps that we can dump up to 7.61 should be runnable, and also it might help in terms of backporting those higher games or getting those games on higher firmwares running on the older firmwares as well, so that you wouldn't have as much of a disparity between, people on say 3.x and 4.x not being able to run the vast amount of game dumps that are available because you need to be on like 6.x or 7.x firmware to run those. So that would make a huge difference overall, but there is a few things to bear in mind. He says it's just theoretical at the moment. He's not actually tried to implement this yet. So who knows, there might be something that prevents him from doing that. Not only that, but he has not officially stated, at least from what I can see, if he would actually end up releasing this or not. Some of the stuff that Flats comes up with, he can hold on to it for a while before releasing it. So we'll have to wait and see on this. But fingers crossed that we get access to PS5 fake packages at some point soon, hopefully. But yeah, anyway, so that is kind of the main update so far here on the PS4 and PS5. So hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I will hopefully see you guys in the next video.